Hey, book lovers, welcome back to Shelf Addiction, the podcast where we dive deep into the pages of thriller and fantasy reads. I'm your host, Tamara, and today we are discussing the first book in our new sci-fi duology, The Darkness Outside Us. But first, quick heads up, if you crave the full visual experience and want to ditch the ads, head on over to Patreon. You'll unlock ad-free videos, exclusive after shows, and ton of bonus content. If you prefer audio, use Spreaker. You guys, the listeners there, you have access to all the same things in audio format. If you want even more bookish chats, join us over on the Book Clubs app, and don't forget to subscribe and leave us a book review. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a podcast review wherever you are listening. We need some more 4s and 5s, y'all. Come on.
Yes, please.
If you're enjoying the podcast, do that for us. Speaking of community, I am thrilled to welcome back my fantasy series bestie and co-host Casey from Heartful of Ink. Welcome back, Casey.
Hello. I'm so excited to be here again. Always.
As always. Tell everyone where they can find you online.
You can find me on Facebook at Heartful of Ink, on Instagram at Casey_Heartful of Ink, or on my website, heartfulofink.com.
Okay, you can also find me in all the usual places. The links are in the show notes, so click around down there and do all the things. We appreciate you for doing it. First up, we are going to share some shelf and personal updates. Currently reading. Have we been reading?
So I just finished the third book in our favorite series, or unofficial favorite series, Scythe and Sparrow by Brynne Weaver. It was amazing. And we have a super secret bonus episode for Patreon only people if you want to listen to us talk about it.
Yeah, it's Spreaker 2. You guys will have access. So I finished that as well because I'm excited to talk about it. I was really happy. I was really happy with it. Yeah. Like, phew, thank God. So yes, that is on deck. It's available, I think, right now. By the time this
airs,
comes out onto the feed, you guys have access to that. But I, too, haven't been reading too much outside of the podcast. But what I have been doing is I started on Peacock, I think it was, Long Bright River.
Ooh.
That was a previous buddy read that Classy and I did, I think, 2 years ago now.
Okay.
And it was, the book club read it too. So some of the, old school people read it with us. And yeah, I said, let's watch the adaptation. It can't be as bad as the book.
Uh-oh.
So, okay. I had to go back and refresh my memory on what I rated the book. I rated it a 2.
Ooh.
And then I started remembering the story and remembering some of my critiques. And I remember it being very slow.
Mm-hmm.
The pacing was slow to, gear up and slow to just very medium pace throughout the rest of the book. And the show is that way. It starts, I fell asleep on the first episode.
Oh, no. That's not a good review.
It's not good. But I feel like the acting is pretty good. I just feel like if the show copies the book, then things will start to pick up. It's just like got this small world feeling. Like it takes place in a major city.
Ooh.
But like the world seems small. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the characters are really about themselves and into like this one particular thing in this one family. And this it's hard to explain without telling the story. But I feel like, I like the actors in it. So I want to give it a shot. I watched 3 episodes.
Oh, no. So I'm not adding this to my list.
No, honestly, I'm not sure when I'm going to finish it, if I'm being truthful, but I will finish it. But now that I know all the episodes, it's a miniseries, so they're not going to do a season 2.
Okay, good.
Which I like. It's going to be the book. That's it. So I'll finish eventually, but that's what I've been watching outside of reading the stuff for the podcast. I do have a book I started today, so I guess technically this is my TBR.
Okay.
But I got a recommendation from one of the ladies at Zumba.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, The Perfect Marriage by Geneva Rose. And I've seen her name before.
Uh-huh.
It's another thriller. That's what I read when I'm not reading fantasy.
Yes.
So yeah, I started that this morning, actually, after I finished today's book that we're going to talk about. So it seems interesting so far. Apparently there's this really successful lawyer wife, and she's not been giving all the attention to her husband because she's been busy being successful and, rocking out, and he's feeling low because he's a writer and he sucks.
He's a man. Yes.
So he's a man. So I have a feeling some things are going to happen.
Ooh.
So yeah, it seems interesting. So that's what's on my immediate TBR. Do you have anything on yours?
Not really. We have a book picked out to read that it popped up on my Libby this morning. Lights Out by Nessa. Like it just became available. So I'm like, do I read it now or do I wait 2 weeks before we get ready to record and start reading it?
Well,
because it's available now. I don't know.
Okay, so we can talk about it after.
We'll talk about this later. But yeah, no.
Yeah.
That's really the only thing that's like definitively going to be read soon.
Yeah.
I might just pick up a random book tonight and start reading just for fun.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
See, that's what yeah.
Just a fun, selfish read. Something just for me. Yeah. I don't know what that'll be though.
It doesn't even matter.
Doesn't
matter. Whatever. As long as you enjoy it. And
exactly.
if you don't, stop reading it and pick something else.
No, I am the queen of that. If you don't capture me by like page 2, I put the book down and walk away.
Yeah, especially we do sacrifice for the podcast
we
and
do.
for book clubs.
And I will sacrifice for you, but I won't sacrifice my own free time.
No, not my own personal reading. No way.
Nope. If I'm not hooked, I don't want it. So,
yeah. Okay, cool. So actually, I think this is a great time to take our first break. And when we come back, we will kick off the main event.
Yay!
Stay with us. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Before we begin, as always, I want to remind you that we talk full spoilers with Book Chat. So spoiler alert, you've been warned. Today, we are discussing The Darkness Outside Us by Elliot Schrefer. The audiobook was narrated by James Fuhey. First published June 1st, 2021 by Clarion Books and HarperCollins Audio. The hardcover comes in at 397 pages. The unabridged audio is 9 hours and 49 minutes. Casey, would you kindly share the synopsis?
2 boys alone in space, sworn enemies sent on the same rescue mission. Ambrose wakes up on the coordinated endeavor with no memory of a launch. There's more that doesn't add up. Evidence indicates strangers have been on board, the ship's operating system is voiced by his mother, and his handsome, brooding shipmate has barricaded himself away. But nothing will stop Ambrose from making his mission succeed, not when he's rescuing his own sister. In order to survive the ship's secrets, Ambrose and Kodiak must work together and learn to trust each other, especially once they discover what they are truly up against. Love might be the only way to survive.
That was a short and sweet synopsis.
Very short, very sweet.
And gave nothing away.
Absolutely nothing. I like that. I really appreciate that.
It gave nothing away. Like, okay, before we jump into that, high level, what did you think? What was your initial reaction?
Really liked it. It was so different from everything we've ever read. It was, like we've read sci-fi before. We've read gay romance before. We've read rescue missions before. We have read enemies to lovers so many goddamn times.
Yeah.
And this had all of those elements, but it was still completely different from everything. And I love that.
Yeah, me too. I pretty much echo your sentiments exactly. The goal was to find something different. I really wanted something like a palate cleanser, right? I said we've been reading a lot of things that seem similar in the same vein, and I was on a hunt to find something really unique. And this book lived up to that expectation. It delivered
1,000%
in every way possible.
Every single way. Completely different.
Yeah. And so I was like, wow, I can't believe I did it.
I was so worried when you started. I was like, oh no, is this going to be like Red Rising? Is it going to be, enemies to lovers kind of stuff? But no, it was so different.
Yeah. And I enjoyed it. I had a good time with it. And so we were talking about how the synopsis didn't give anything away. Let me tell you, when we got to part 2,
Oh, God.
I was like, oh, shit, I didn't see that coming.
I know. I was sitting there reading going, is he really about to kill his main character? Oh, shit, he just killed the love interest and now the main character's dying too? What is happening?
Yeah.
And then
I was like, what? And then here we go. He's waking up again.
He's waking up again.
And at first I was like, is this like a Groundhog Day? What's happening? And then I was like, oh, I got clones.
I didn't
How
guess
crazy.
clones. I was thinking Groundhog Day too. Some kind of like terrible, every time you die, you come back. But I don't know why I didn't think clones. But yeah, no, it was...
Because we haven't read anything with clones.
We haven't read anything with clones.
Yeah, it's something you don't come across a lot. Very unique. Yeah, very good.
Oh, yeah.
So where should we really...
I mean, let's start with part 1. How did you think going into the story? Was it... Because there were kind of creepy vibes immediately from page 1, where I was like, obviously stuff is not adding up.
Yeah.
Obviously something weird is going on. But like, looking back, did you think that was his first clone, or do you think that was like the second or the third, or like somewhere down the line? So
initially, when we found out they were clones, I started wondering, was he the first? I did wonder that. And then by the time I finished the book, I figured he wasn't. I figured he might have been 3 or 4.
Yes.
Because they were so far away.
Yes.
Because how many they had left. And then our main... I guess the chunk of the story was the furthest clones that this pair of clones went was the pair 13. So pair 13 went the longest. They lived the longest.
They made it to their 30s, which was crazy.
Yeah. So I'm like, well, the original must have been 3 or 4, because it kept happening a few times in short succession and we were jumping large periods of time. So I'm like, okay, yeah, that's where.
Yeah.
That was wild. But at first I really did think, maybe he was the first person. And at first I thought, well, he was the original person and he had clones as backup. No.
I was thinking that too. I really thought that, like, okay, the main this is the main person dying, and then everybody after is a clone. But nope, person stayed on Earth, or the real Ambrose was on
and Kodiak, both.
Yeah.
Both of them, they stayed on Earth and lived out their old age, or however long they lived naturally until they died.
I wonder if they ever met on Earth, and if their humans ever fell in love, or if they just went and had...
because they were from different countries.
Yeah.
Opposing countries.
Which is sad. I kind of wish they had that long life together, but...
Well, goes to show that, if you're not put in... Proximity is a lot.
Proximity is everything.
Yeah, when it comes to all kind of relationships, romantic relationships, friendships,
family,
proximity means everything. And on Earth, they had no reason to run in the same circle at all. They had no reason to meet each other. So, but I kind of wonder, had they had the opportunity to be around each other, would they have?
I think they would have had a brief fling. I don't think they would have had such a deep love for each other.
No, I mean, when you're on a spaceship alone with only one person,
yes,
that person looks awfully good to you. It's like there's no other options.
I mean, I was wondering, like, Kodiak looks hot. He's built, he has muscles, he has the dark hair, like, he looks hot. Yeah. I was wondering if he looked ugly, would they have this much chemistry?
Well, Ambrose said, he's not really my type, but he did say that a couple times. Each iteration of him was like, well,
he's not really my type, because I like them thin and wispy, but he's hot and I'll climb him like a tree. I was like, so what if he wasn't hot? What if he was...
You know what? If he wasn't hot, I'd like to think that they would eventually fall anyway, because you know how when you see someone, they may not be chef's kiss right off visually, but once you start to get to know them, they start looking cuter or uglier depending on what comes out of their mouth.
Their personality absolutely influences that.
Yeah, I'm sure like if he wasn't that hot looking, eventually he would have fell in love with him anyway. I
I
think.
like
That's
that.
what I'd like
That's a
to
very
think.
romantic take. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, see, I got warm blood inside my body. But yeah, I thought they were really cute each time.
Mhm.
Like, wow.
Oh, yeah. No, each iteration was so them, but unique at the same time.
Mhm.
Like, Kodiak kind of had a couple of breakdowns in some of these iterations, and Ambrose would try and hold him back, and then Ambrose would have a breakdown, or it
Yeah.
was so interesting to watch the author keep their personalities the same, but have
Mhm.
them react differently each time.
Yes, like the one time where, and I forget which set this was because we kind of lost count of the sets through in the in
Yeah.
between. But Kodiak went absolutely batshit. He was trying to break things. He was
Mhm.
trying to
That's what
like
I was
break
thinking
out.
about.
He thought it was like a simulation or something.
Mhm.
He's like, "We're gonna beat this. Let's get out of here." And he's like, "No, don't do it." And the rover thing had to like
Zap
electrocute
him.
him.
Mhm.
Like, goddamn. Like, oh,
Multiple times, and even that
multiple
didn't
times.
fix it, and he's still just, like, hit the door and got
He
sucked
wants
out into
out.
space, and
Yeah, he wanted out. He thought he was just gonna get out of an underground simulation or something, and they would just be in their world.
mhm.
Problem solved. Like, they're trying to trick us.
Which, I would probably have that reaction at some point too.
Yeah. So, what do you think about, the method
Mhm.
that the humans decided to use these clones? Like, do you think, because like I think even Ambrose asked or kind of posed the question, like, what if we just knew about this from the beginning? Wouldn't we have just done our jobs? Or would we not? Would we need to be tricked by the operating system?
I feel like they kind of answered that question themselves when they said, people would just stop working. They didn't want to just die. They wanted to feel like they
Yeah.
had a purpose. They wanted to feel important. They wanted to feel the emotional connection of, I have to go save my sister. They
But they
needed
didn't
that,
know the whole
but they
deal.
didn't know the
Like,
whole deal.
if they knew, so for
Mhm.
example, we learned at the end, obviously, spoiler alert, we learned at the end their goal was to go and birth babies, like birth through
Science and
science, through science, and like these birthing pods, they're going to create a new humanity
Mhm.
from scratch. They had a lot of eggs
Yeah.
and they were supposed to do this was the task. And none of the clones knew this.
Mm-mm.
None of them until they landed there. But I kind of feel like if you had told the clones you have this huge responsibility to repopulate a civilization. You have something to live for. You have something to work for.
Mhm.
But these clones didn't even know a fraction of what.
Because it took them 30,000 years
Mhm.
to get there. And
Yeah.
so I feel like maybe some of the clones would have been like, yes, let's protect the babies. Let's die for this cause. But I
Yeah.
think some of the other clones would have still been like, fuck this. Like, let's find a different planet. Let's do something else.
So
I
let's
don't,
go back a step. So
okay.
what if, because you remember when they talk about when they created these clones,
Mm-hmm.
they took them from a point in their memory, so their
Mm-hmm.
memory stopped.
Yes.
But what if Kodiak and Ambrose were taught what the lesson, what the goal is, and they had embodied it? I'm going to do this. I
Ooh.
feel
Okay.
this is the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were cloned after that break.
I'm going to say something kind of controversial.
Okay.
I feel like if they were women, it
Mm-hmm.
might that would work better.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like women are slightly more maternal. Not that men can't be maternal, like, they're gonna
Right.
be good dads, all of that stuff. But I
Right.
feel like women saying, "We gotta take care of these babies, we gotta take care of these eggs, we need to repopulate Earth 2.0."
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that might have worked with women. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think it would have worked with 2 male soldiers because they were soldiers. You know, men and soldiers specifically, male soldiers have that very driven, like, this is a rescue mission. We're going to be heroes. We have to save this person. Like, it's a very straightforward A plus B equals C. We're going to save her and then go home kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
And they kept showing him the video of his sister where she's bloody and injured and saying, you have to fix the ship in order to come rescue me. Like, that felt very like that's how men would react to it. They need that. Whereas women would be like, okay, yes, let's be more maternal. Let's continue Earth. Let's repopulate with all of these embryos.
I think that Ambrose would have been able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
He seems more in touch with his feelings than Kodiak is.
Absolutely.
So he might have been able to do the task with the full knowledge up front. Kodiak, no. I think he probably needed something else. But I don't think, because Ambrose was the storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
He was the one having to deal with finding out every time that his whole family was dead. Like, that sucks.
Mm-hmm.
You got to find out when you figure out you're a clone, and then you figure out my whole family's been dead for thousands of years.
But you're still hearing your mother's voice. You're still seeing these videos of your sister that are fake. And it's like, oh.
That would drive me crazy.
That would definitely drive me crazy.
Right. Like, stop lying. Because every iteration of them, they get a little bit smarter about how to defeat the operating system.
Yes.
About how to transfer knowledge to the next versions of them without it, like, interrupting that, you know, without it being smart enough to figure out what they're doing. So each time they got a little bit more information to when the final pair, they like had videos. I mean, it got so bad that the operating system actually stopped trying to deceive them and just went along because it knew there's no.
Well, they destroyed like most of the other clones,
all of them,
the backup
except for
clones,
one.
except for the last pair.
And that's what I don't remember. Do you remember the total amount of clones they had?
I think it was like, I remember 12 left. I don't remember anything higher than 12, but I think there may have been like 15, like starting from number 1, there may have been like 15 each.
Okay, because that's weird. So if 13 was the one that lived the longest.
That's why, because I remember hearing and 12
they killed
left,
some.
but that wasn't.
Well, we know every year they like kind of had like this celebration / memorial for the clones. So every year they threw a clone out into space. For several years they did this. So if I had to guess, 13 plus 10 years of them throwing out clones. Maybe they had 25 clones each. Maybe.
I think so. Like,
if I had to guess,
there was a lot.
They had a lot because so the thing is, they would wake the clones when there were so many repairs that needed to be done. So the ship would just work with them in stasis, whatever. They just keep the clones there because it's so far and so long. You cannot have people awake eating the resources. They're just going to die anyway. So they would wake them. They would do the task. And then when the tasks were done, they would shoot them out. They would kill them. Yeah. And then next round again. And then it would be couple thousand years. And the task would fly up, in quantity. And then they again, repeat. Until they reach the planet. And then when they reach the planet where they told, here is your mission behind a door. Here's the mission.
Yes.
Which you're here. Which is crazy. That's crazy.
That is crazy. That is insane.
That's ingenious. That's a really smart story.
It is. It was so well done. And it was, each time you're peeling back a new layer, you're discovering something new about the ship, about Ambrose and Kodiak. You're discovering something new each time about the ship itself and the mission and how are they going to fight back against a fucking computer when they're stuck in space. and they have to, whisper and talk under the blanket and like
right on a tablet that's disconnected from
yeah.
everything. Actually, the version of Ambrose that was smart enough to put the OS Prime on his watch, like, oh my God, if he had never done that, they would still be in this awful circle. They would never know.
Oh yeah.
You know?
I feel like because he is that smart, he would have done it eventually, but I'm glad like he did it somewhat early on and was able to, upload the stories and tell his selves and then hide them in places where he knew the computer wouldn't find it. Like porn. That was hilarious and brilliant.
So Ambrose knows once you see Kodiak, you're going to start thinking about him. And you're going to start looking for porn that resembles
You're going to look for a very specific porn. I know because I'm you, and this is exactly what I searched.
This is what I do. This is what I did. So here you go. I'm just going to lay this audio in here. And I know because you don't want the operating system to hear you, you're going to put headphones in.
Yep.
And I'm going to be able to tell you this while you watch this pornography.
Brilliant.
Like, that is brilliant. Like, who would hide messages in a porn video? That's
I don't know. I was trying to think what I would do for myself. I think I would like try and write it in a book. Like pick up one of my favorite books and then write between the lines and in the margins and be like, all right, Casey, I knew you were going to pick up this book. So here's what's happening.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, then you'd have to believe it. You're writing. And that's the thing. Yeah. Each clone, they're themselves. So they recognize their own voice when it's talking to them. And the later iterations, the 13, they were doing videos. They know what they look like. They're like, oh, if you want to see what you look like at 37,
here we go.
Here we are.
That was really cute.
It's like, Kodiak put on a little bit of LBs, but he's still hot.
He's so hot. It's great. I will say that one video of his death, Ambrose's death, was very scary.
Yeah.
That one made me like, oh shit, can I lock my doors at night? Like,
yeah. Like the OS killed him.
It crawled in through the ceiling somehow and then slashed his throat while he was asleep. And I was like, okay, normally books don't scare me, but I don't want robots crawling into my room slashing my throat. So.
No, the rover thing was like doing it. And it's like, it just, the OS sent him or that, rover as its executioner, as its cleaner, as its everything. That little thing was running around doing all kind of shit. And literally that version of Ambrose was like, I'm going to update this audio every day, this video every day. And if it does not, if it doesn't get refreshed, it's because I'm dead.
Yep. And then you watch the video of him die and you're like, oh shit, this is terrifying.
It is terrifying. I was like, dang. This author was able to get into tap into a lot of different feelings during this book.
Every type of emotion, from shock and horror to love and pain and
sadness. I felt bad for them
so many times with everything. Just the whole human psyche. He did
a good job with tapping into that.
Absolutely.
And honestly, it was very balanced. So while this was a love story, it was also a lot of other things. It didn't feel too heavy on the love where it felt unbelievable. You know what I mean? It was just enough. And it was balanced with the science and space and the action. The action and the threat.
Yes.
Right? As well as the isolation and other feelings that they were having from being out in this place where they didn't even know where the hell they were. They were looking at a fake screen. They couldn't even see what was outside. This thing was manipulating them day in and day out until they forced it. They broke it. They broke the OS and then it stopped. That's wild to me.
Isn't it? It's crazy.
I keep saying that, but it is.
But also,
y'all.
like I mentioned earlier, everything was so different. Every iteration, they had a new emotional reaction. You know, sometimes they fell in love really easily and they would just hold each other immediately like an old married couple. And sometimes they're like, no, we're just horny. And sometimes there was, when they lived forever, he really got to experience what love was like, long-term love, not just...
Oh, I love that one.
That was so good. And then when he was talking about it later and his new self was like, I don't care about this shit. I was like, oh my God, if my future self could talk to me about this, like, I would give anything for this. And yes.
So that span, the 13th set that had lived the longest time, you know, they talked about, you know, Ambrose shared how, you know, Kodiak went a little nuts and then it was my turn to go a little nuts. I woke up one day and lost my shit.
And I was like, I think I would too.
Yeah. And he said, we decided I would just go on a little adventure. And I was gone for 6 weeks. He was gone. And like what I thought of is, you know how on Star Trek they would go into this thing and it would look like the woods or it would look like whatever they wanted. And he was just, this thing was so huge. He could just be gone for 6 weeks.
That's exactly what I pictured too.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I could walk along a beach for 6 weeks right about now. Like,
I need a break.
Incredible.
I need a break from all this drama.
And then he talked about, you know, when he came back right after that, he was gone for 6 weeks. And right before, he just wanted to kill Kodiak. He hated him. He was over everything. But as soon as he came back, he ran up and hugged him and loved him because it was so beautiful.
It was beautiful. I'm like, look at and that's the thing. This is how, and you almost wonder, how do characters mature and grow in this kind of situation? And this is how. He was able to do it. Even though he had to start over again.
I know, but it was still that beautiful of like, this is life. And the author gave us their whole lives, or the 20 years of this life, this one particular life, in quick snippets where we could see him falling apart, but also see him growing and loving. And then when Kodiak died, he was like, all right, I'm done too. I'm killing myself. I don't want to live without him.
He died of cancer. That was so sad. So he had cancer and they tried the rover operated with him and they thought they had it, but they didn't. And then a year later he died. I'm like, oh, that's so sad.
It's
I'm like,
so
that is
sad.
Horrible. And then
but
he's
they
like,
kept talking about the radiation and like how bad the radiation is and how we'll get radiation and die in our 20s. So the fact that he made it to like mid 30s was fantastic. But it is so fucking sad. Of all the deaths, I think that one almost brought me to tears because, like, you got but so also, far.
By that iteration, by the 13th iteration, he was no longer up there trying to like steer the ship and stuff. That was like whatever iteration that was, where he went up there and he literally had radiation poisoning and he died really fast.
That one was awful too. I think that was like
really bad.
Part 2 or part 3. Like it was fairly early into the book.
So after that, of course, they wrote everything down. They relayed everything. So once they changed, you know, what they were doing. And so they were able to live longer because they weren't up there doing things that would kill them off faster. Yep. So they had some radiation, which makes me wonder, how long will the final couple live?
Who knows? It's been, what, a year? Hopefully they live another 20 years. But...
well, they better hurry up with getting those eggs made.
Yeah.
They better hurry. Because if you only have... and actually, the character mentioned that. Like, what happens if I, like, have a freak accident tomorrow and all these eggs are still here?
Well, you better start popping out more babies.
It's going to be like these wild little kids running on the loose trying to raise themselves. Like, I don't know. Oh, my gosh. But can you imagine, though? Like...
I cannot imagine.
All of these people that they have from humans, all different... spans of life, probably, hopefully.
Yeah.
So when they
did
repopulate,
say something about like making sure everybody was like not even remotely related. So that when they grow up, they can keep populating the earth and not worry about any sort of cross-contamination.
I mean, honestly, they probably need to just do them. If they only had one pod, as soon as that baby popped out, they should put another one in.
I was thinking, could you get a couple babies at a time? It would be really difficult to take care of multiple babies at a time. And it'll drive you crazy, but
somebody got to do it.
Somebody got to do it.
Yeah, and then by the time they get, so it's 18 years, and then you're still having babies, and then finally, probably the couples will start pairing off eventually and start having kids on their own.
But it's going to take
a while. It's going to take like 20 years, maybe. At least. Probably. Yeah, at least. So, I don't know, but at that point, when they were a year into their stay on that planet, so they were only like 19 years old, right, at that point. So they were still young. They were young, but they felt old.
Yes.
They felt old.
Because they have lived so many lifetimes. Yeah. And they have all of their history right at their fingertips.
Yeah, isn't that crazy how you can be old and young at the same time? I wonder if they feel that way after hearing all the stories from their previous selves.
I would.
Like, do they feel old?
I think they would.
Yeah, that's... Wow.
And you're it. Wow. Yeah.
You're it. I want to talk about, what do you think about the scene where they were killing the clones? And the OS is screaming bloody murder like they're murderers.
I don't think they're murderers. I also don't know if that was the right choice. Like, it was definitely a good choice. But my thought was like, okay, obviously, the OS can't kill them off if there's nobody left. But once you get to the planet, and like, if they had known this, maybe they wouldn't have killed off all their clones. They could have just woken up all of the clones, right? And then you would have had
a bunch of clones.
A bunch of clones running around. It was a little weird, but I was like, then you could have like multiple iterations on Earth, making sure the babies are growing up, making sure everything's running smoothly, and like, I don't know. That was my thought. Because they
did that, that's why they crash landed. Because they didn't have any more clones to keep up with the
I think
the care of things.
The ship was alone for like 12,000 years or something, and that's why it was falling apart and covered in moss.
You bring in a plant, and you're like, oh, fun, plant.
Cute
yay.
Plant.
And then you die. And then what do you think happens when vegetation starts? It never stops.
That was my thought too. I was like, I would not bring a plant onto my spaceship.
No. And how it messed with the oxygen levels, it messed with corrosion, all these things. It just totally tanked that ship. And there was no one around to do maintenance because you killed all the clones.
Exactly.
So
exactly. That's why I was like, it's a good idea, and it was helpful for this iteration, but I don't know if I would have. I may have like killed half of them.
I mean, honestly, I feel like ultimately I understand the love story and that they wanted to be together as long as they could, but that was very selfish.
Yes.
In the scheme of things. But also, again, it's only, so I only can call it selfish because I have like the 2020 purview. Yes. I know what the end is.
Yes. They didn't
and
know
again,
that.
If they knew, if the OS had told them what the end game was, they might not have done that. Yes. They probably wouldn't have done it.
Probably not. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I agree with everything you're saying right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
But the 13th set, they did what they felt they needed to do with what the information they had. So,
and I'm not saying it's wrong.
Yeah.
Like they got their love story. They got the computer to stop murdering them because, they all would have died anyway.
Yeah, they would have.
So,
okay, actually, I think this is a great time to take a break. You guys check out these commercials. By doing that, you are supporting the podcast. Don't forget to pick up a copy of the book review journal available on Amazon right now. When we come back, we will complete our conversation and we will rate the book and we'll wrap it up. So stay with us. Okay, welcome back.
So I thought of something, and this is just a fun note for us because if anybody has been paying attention over the years, they know that you and I agree on one big thing. we hate babies in the epilogue. We hate it. We will throw a book down if there's a baby in the epilogue.
Yes, no lies detected.
This book, I think you and I both appreciated these babies.
Yes,
right?
I did, because I thought, okay, this is what I thought. I'm like, so you got two dudes.
Yep, two dads.
But you can't do anything. They're just gonna die, and now what? So that made sense. It worked for the story.
It worked for the story.
Yes.
They were there to repopulate. They were there to be dads. They were there to help Earth 2.0. But like, it was just one of those things where it was like, you and I hate babies. But this time,
I hate that.
Yeah. I think that just proves how good this book was and how different it was from everything else we've ever read. Yeah,
because in this case, it wasn't that traditional baby plot. No. It was very different.
It wasn't, and it was like, very marriage, baby, happily ever after. This is how life has to be. No, this was 100% like, we are here with, this is our mission. We are scientifically making babies. We have to save Earth, save humanity. Like, it felt
because Earth is gone. They think Earth is gone. Yeah, that was very satisfying. That left it. And even though there's part 2, I guess we get to see what happens if they keep churning out these kids.
Yes. I hope Ambrose and Kodiak are still alive in book 2. Like, I really hope.
Looking at the cover art, I feel like they're at least in part of it. Okay. At least. I don't know if they'll be in the whole book, because I gotta assume at some point this author does massive time jumps. So
yeah. Eventually they'll die. Biggest time jumps I've ever read.
Yeah. So even trying to grow humanity from scratch. I'm sure, if I had to guess, and of course I don't know for sure, I haven't read the book yet, but if I had to guess, I think they'd be around probably, and then eventually we'll see them die of old age at some point, and then we'd carry on with the story. I'd like to think the author got us to a happily ever after at the end of the second book. I hope
so.
Yeah.
Like, this was definitely a happily for now. They survived everything. They're on the planet. They're still doing their mission. Things are working out. So it's happily for now. Yeah. And I hope there's a good, happy ending in book 2 and not like dinosaurs or aliens coming around eating everybody.
Yeah, this end was so satisfying. It could have ended there.
Absolutely.
It could have been a standalone. Up to us to think what happens, but it totally could have been a standalone. Yeah. Which I like when they're able to do that, where it could go either way.
Yes.
Where I want to see what happens next, but I'm okay if there isn't a next.
Yes.
But yeah. What did you think about the role of AI in the book? The OS and the rover thing.
Well, first of all, it's hella creepy. Also very murdery. So that's very scary. And I don't want AI crawling into my room, slitting my throat in the middle of the night. So like, yay, new night terrors. Thank you.
You're like, new fear unlocked.
New fear unlocked. Thanks. It was really interesting.
Yeah.
And I think I'm still trying to process how I feel about it. So I'm not like, it was good. It was interesting. I understand why the AI was doing what it was doing. I understand how it was able to fulfill the mission by itself, because like, no human can live for 12,000 years. Right. It was good, but also kind of creepy, because there were a lot of times where like, the mother's voice or the OS was like, no, you have to do it this way because this is the mission. And I have determined this is what humans need.
And that's what I don't like, because usually when we have AI and robots and things like that, that is like one of the directives, that they're unable to hurt humans. That is supposedly one of like the things that they're not supposed to be able to do. And this OS and its rover had no problem
whatsoever. It was intentionally killing off those clones. Yeah.
It was doing whatever it needed to do to get the mission done. And that was its directive. Get the mission done at any cost. It does not matter what you say or do.
Yep.
So that is very dangerous. That's a very dangerous thing. But I don't know. Maybe once this operating system dies once and for all, they
I
won't
don't
have
know if
it.
it will.
I thought about that. I'm like, how's this thing just going and going? And then, of course, they're like, oh, we have a generator that feeds off of the.
Yeah.
I guess. But one thing I did think was funny,
Mm-hmm.
and you won't get this if you don't listen to the audiobook.
Okay.
So at the beginning, where Ambrose is trying to get the operating system to change his voice,
Uh-huh.
at the beginning, where he's like, oh, I want you to sound like my mom, sound like this hot man, right? This actor.
I remember that, yes.
Yes. On the audiobook, it is hilarious. He changes the voice. And he's like he's like, oh, this voice, I could just, he's like in love with the voice. And then, when Kodiak's like, change it back. It's funny. He changed it back. It was funny. Like, so
Yes.
I think that was the only time in the whole book I actually thought anything was really funny.
Yeah.
But
there's not a lot of funny things in this book.
No, I'm like, we got one little highlight of comedy at the beginning, and the rest is not like that.
But again, like we keep saying, it was a really good diversity of emotions, right? The author was able to give us every emotion, everything, and humor was a great way to start the book, even if it wasn't throughout the whole book. We still had those moments of levity. And there were a couple other jokes in there too where I was like, oh, okay, this is a little funny. But they're very small, very brief, nothing like the voice, which, even if you're reading it, I was laughing at that, especially when Kodiak was like, change it back.
He's like, I don't want to hear this. What do you think about their histories and how that like informed their clones? Like, for example, Kodiak, he grew up like he's a very tough guy, right? Their training was very different than Ambrose's training. When he talks about hooking up with boys in the training.
Yes. I really liked how different they were, but how similar they were at the same time. Right? Like Ambrose was basically fed from the silver spoon. He was the golden boy. He had the DNA of Alexander the Great, so he felt like he was the greatest.
It's like a superstar or something.
Yeah, like a superstar, but he still had all of that training, and he had basically the same instructions of do everything for your country, fight for your country, sacrifice yourself for your country. And that when Kodiak went insane in that one iteration, he was saying that. He was like, oh my God, I have given everything to my country. I'm supposed to be a good soldier. I did all the right things. I said yes to everything. And I was like, okay, so they're two sides of the same coin, right? Like it's Kodiak did this not with a silver spoon, but it was basically the same.
Well, you can even tell like how their countries treated them. So, for example, on Ambrose's side, he's got a violin, he's got manicotti, he's got like some luxuries, right? And it seems like Kodiak has some things, but not really. He like, I'm gonna eat your food. We get gruel over here. I don't know. It's very interesting how the countries treated the clones differently. Like they had a different level of like how the society was for them.
Which, it really played into both of their personalities and how they reacted to this and how they were able to overcome these issues and still be there for each other and fall in love with each other. And it was just, the author has an incredible talent for character arcs and character growth and character personality and killing off your main characters repeatedly, but bringing them back and giving them the same but something new at the same time.
Yeah. That's a choice. I mean, it's hard to do, and he did it successfully. Because this, like we were saying, at first I thought, is this going to be a Groundhog Day thing? Because if it were, that could have went really bad.
Oh, absolutely. Like, yes.
Yeah, it was really unique. And I was really surprised. I felt like I had Gone Girl level surprise when I was like, oh my God, they're close.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because, well, first of all, in 99.9% of all books and movies, you don't kill off the main character.
Right.
It happens occasionally, and when it does happen, it's almost always at like near the end of the book, right? Or the end of the movie, you know, after they've gone on their adventure and done all this stuff. And so we're nearing the end of part 1, and I'm like, we're not even halfway through the book. We're like maybe 30% of the way into the book, and oh my God, it looks like he's about to fucking die. And then they both died, and I was like, what is happening right now? How is this happening? It was so shocking. And again, like the blurb doesn't tell you anything, which peak blurb. Love that.
Yeah. I was like, wow, I did not
see that coming. I know. At first, I was like, oh my God, is Kodiak going to die and Ambrose is going to be alone for the rest of the book? Like, what are you doing? I kept trying to, like, you know, solve it and figure out what was going on. And I couldn't. And I loved that.
Yeah, me too. I really did. Like, I was it perfection? No. But it had a lot more things right than wrong.
Absolutely.
That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I am so happy we read this.
I am too. This was everything you asked for. This was everything we wanted. Like, this was, yes.
Yeah. So I'm just so relieved because this could have went any kind of way.
It could have been so bad, but
it could have. Like, I on purpose, I didn't read any of the reviews. I didn't read anything because, you know, I just read the synopsis and said, and of course we listened to the first part or read the first part, the sample. Yeah. I'm like, this sounds so different. Let's try it.
Yes. It was so good.
Such a success. I love when something good happens. Okay. What do you think? Any other things we should highlight or discuss before we rate it?
Can I just say that I'm now craving manicotti and I want to go eat some Italian food tonight. Like, they talk about it so much. And he was like, it's just pasta and cheese and tomato sauce. I was like, that sounds so good.
It does sound good, actually. Actually, you know, there's one more thing I wanted to comment on. Okay. So it looks like this is tagged as YA. And, you know, yes, they are YA aged, right? But it doesn't feel YA. It doesn't feel like I'm reading a YA book. It does not feel like all that traditional teenage angsty shit. It's not here.
At all.
This is a different... It feels like it could be an adult book with younger people.
Absolutely. I almost kind of wish they called them like 21, 22, just so that like this could be shelved, or like even 25, just so this could be shelved in adult, because this has so many adult themes.
Yes.
But at the same time, I want to say, like, I'm glad teenagers are picking this up and reading it, because if I read this book as a teenager, it would have been incredible.
But see, I wonder, would they even pick up on like some of the things about morality? Like, you know, like them, is it moral to kill these clones? Is it moral to lie like they did? You know, like there's a lot of things that could be more in depth than just the surface level action on the page, you know? So that's why I'm like, if it's YA, well, maybe I'm underestimating kids nowadays. Maybe they could get into the nuts and bolts of it and understand some of, like, you know, the political things happening.
I think teenagers can get into that. And I feel like this is a good way to, like, at least introduce them to that and introduce them to these themes. So even if they aren't getting it at a surface, like right off the bat, it's something that they could think about later in life and think back and be like, oh my God, that's what the book was trying to tell me all along.
Yeah, because even Ambrose and Kodiak, they're from, like, Ambrose is like from the United States and Kodiak's like from Russia. You know?
Yep.
They're enemies. Yep. Well, supposed to be
enemies. But somebody likes a certain type of pornography that doesn't sound very enemies-like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I just thought it was so interesting, like how you bring these two different types of people with different upbringing, but they still had a core mission.
Yes.
And how they were able to come together despite all the things, despite the unusual circumstances they were in.
Mm-hmm.
And they just keep falling in love over and over again.
Yep. And it was beautiful. Like, I know I said that, but it was just one of those beautiful love stories where they don't fit, but they fit. And when they do fit, like, it was just... There was one scene where he was talking about how they were just sitting there looking out the window holding each other. And I was like, this is one of the most romantic moments of all times. Like, this is beautiful.
Yeah.
And the author really balanced out the different types of romance and the different types of love that they had for each other. And all of that mixed with all of the horror and the terror and everything else going on. This was a beautiful book.
Yeah, they had some sex in the book, but it was basically closed door, basically.
Oh, closed door.
Yeah. We knew what was happening, but we need to know it.
But there's no detail about it. They kind of joke about it afterward, but yeah.
They do have a little joke about, giving a receipt, accepting and stuff like that. Like, they have a joke about two tops in space or some shit. Like, what? Okay. It's funny. Yeah, there's another little comedy part in there. There's a little comedy around that. But yeah, let's go ahead and rate the book. Would you like to go first?
I can go first.
Okay.
I'm going to give this a very emotional, happy 5 stars. There were a few issues, but I didn't really feel like nitpicking or bringing them up. Like, there were so many good things about this story that I can keep talking about all of the good things. And this is definitely a story or a book that I feel like I could recommend to anybody. I could recommend this to teenagers. I could recommend this to adult friends. I could recommend this to anybody who wants a sci-fi book, anybody who wants a love story, anybody who wants really any sort of action adventure romance. Like, this book has it all. And the author's ability with the character development and the personality and keeping all of the emotions front and center. It was just beautiful.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, but I did rate it a 4. I gave it a 4, but it's a strong, enthusiastic 4.
Yeah.
I had a really good time.
4.5, that's where I'd be at. Like, that's the happy 4.5, but I'll round up to a 5.
Okay. So my 4 is, I agree with Casey. I would recommend this to any kind of reader pretty much, especially if you've been reading a lot of the same stuff and you just really need a reset. This is a perfect book for that. It's perfect for that.
Yes.
The author is very talented. He's definitely got some skills, and he's able to write about things that are hard in a way that is soft.
Yes.
Does that make sense? Yes. I'm like, yeah, very good.
Yes. 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. We win.
Yes.
We've got our first real true win of the year.
Woohoo!
Yes. Next month, hopefully you will come back. And of course, join us in book clubs. If you want to talk with us and other listeners and book club members about the book, I believe this airs before book club. Come on over and join us. And also, next month, we'll be finishing the duology with The Brightness Between Us. And we're going to see what happens. I am curious to see what happens.
I'm very curious. Yes.
I'm confident we're going to have some time jumps. I know it. He is
absolutely.
Like, this author is time jump happy. So
he time jumped like 30,000 years across this
I know.
book.
Wouldn't that be crazy if it starts and they're like 35 years old?
Oh my God.
We shall see. We shall see.
Yes.
That's it for today's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the entire thing. We appreciate you for doing that. If you want to check out our after show, it's available right now on Patreon and Spreaker, as well as the bonus episode we told you about earlier. So hopefully you'll join us and check those things out and support the podcast. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Did you enjoy today's episode? If so, please head over to Apple Podcast or Spotify and leave a positive 5-star review. It's a simple action that makes a big difference. You can also like this episode on your favorite podcast player or share it with your fellow bookworm friends on social media. Joining the Shelf Addiction Patreon family is another way to support us. For as little as $2 a month, you can help our team create even more amazing bookish content. If Patreon isn't your thing, consider becoming a supporter on the Spreaker app for just $5 a month and gain access to exclusive audio-only content. You can find me everywhere, including Instagram, X, and TikTok under the handle Shelf Addiction. Join our book club of the same name on the book club's website and app, where we discuss all things bookish and more in a safe space. The Shelf Addiction podcast is a part of the Nerdy Maven Network. Thanks for tuning in.